Welcome back to this week's episode of MVP Podcast, episode 19. We have our guest this week is Mark. He is from Canada.
Hey.
From Canada, moved to the States, back to Canada, different part of Canada.
Yes.
So he's been all over the place. I am huge in mindset, if you haven't already realized. But so is Mark. He put so many nuggets of gold in this show just on mindset. We didn't really get into the investment numbers on this one. We got into kind of who he is, his life-changing story, his mindset going forward. He dropped some books that I just hope if he can get anything out of this show, get inspired at least to read one of these books.
Basically what I've been doing for Marcus lately is I say we have a podcast and then I don't tell him anything about the podcast. And then I'm like, oh, hey, here's the guy's name. Are you ready? And then he just hops on and he's like, his mind gets blown. So
yeah, he's like, she sees, like, he'll mention one thing and my eyes like light up and I'm like, okay, this guy gets it.
Yep.
Or this girl gets it. And Mark is one that gets it. So if Mark can do anything for you, inspire you to read one of these books, take one step into, I guess, the better you or where you want to be in the year coming.
Yeah.
Look on your Amazon shopping list.
Yes. You'll
teaser.
Hear more about that.
As a teaser.
Yeah.
But let's bring him on. Let's learn about Mark and his story.
So I go by Mark Smith, and I started this journey, this real estate investing journey. I want to say, let me rephrase that. When I started taking real estate investing seriously, it was probably about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I'm originally from Western Canada, and I had moved down to Chicago. I was down in Chicago for about 6 years, and then I made my move back up to just outside the Toronto area up in Canada. And I came from a high-ticket sales background, so I did medical sales for about 20 years. Our focus was on high-ticket items, believe it or not, with ICU ventilators. So in the midst of COVID, that's been a hot topic.
Yeah.
And I was doing that for, like I said, 20 years. And in that 20-year span, amassed over $80 million in sales. I lived the high life. I was, expensive suits, $6,000 suits, balls for style, like just box seats everywhere. I lived the high life, but at the same time, I was a very broken, empty human being. I had this, my mindset was just completely shattered. I grew up with a sense of having to be loved by everyone and pleasing others. And it just took its toll on me. I had some very toxic relationships around me. I went through a marital breakdown. I went through a toxic relationship with my previous employer. And it wasn't until about 2017, and I actually hit rock bottom. I hit rock bottom, and it was just one thing after another. I could not get a break. I keep on reminding myself my mindset just wasn't there. I kept on claiming I was a victim. And essentially, it took such a toll that through my marital breakdown, I was thrown the atomic bomb of divorce cases, which is allegations of domestic abuse.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, so, and it's sad because there's a lot of people, a lot of women that have gone through this, and when there's allegations that end up being thrown out of court because of they've been falsified, you just feel bad for the women that had to go through that, and they didn't get a say in that. So it was just a really, really bad situation, and like I said, I spent the night behind bars, but looking back at it, it was the safest I was being behind in that cell, because I hit the lowest point of my life, and I was given a choice. And that choice is to fold my hand or do I play that hand? And not trying to make this poetic by no means, but I go by the 7-2 mindset investor. And a lot of people ask me what that 7-2 represents. Is it like the formula for doubling your money using interest formula and so forth? I think that's a cute story, but in actual fact, the 7-2 actually represents the worst possible hand in poker.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in poker, or in life in general, you can't control the hand you're dealt. You can control how you play that hand. And I just said, enough's enough. I got to play this bad hand. And I was able to play this bad hand and then turn it into where I am today. And, you know, through that journey and going through all that stuff, I mean, my divorce is still ongoing. Already spent over $200,000 into the divorce already. And, you know, I remember hitting that moment, and my partner came home, and I'm sitting on the sofa. You know, the dogs in my head. I got a dog because I was in such a bad spot. And she said, like, what's the matter? And I said, we got to do something here because my net worth is being completely destroyed. My credit's being completely destroyed. My name is completely destroyed because of these allegations. And I said, I got to do something. And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, we're going to go serious at real estate investing. And because we know that most millionaires you know, it's the fast track is going to be through real estate investing or through real estate.
Sure.
Through that journey, I had actually purchased 4 properties in 8 months. Went really, really hard at it. But I mean, my lessons were all from watching YouTube or whatever. But my mindset. I keep on going back to mindset. I was, you know, my scarcity mindset. So I would work all day in my expensive suits, go home, eat something, and then I go swing a hammer and sleep on drywall at night. You know, my spousal and child support was through the roof. I'm just trying my legal bills and just trying to survive. So in 18 months, I probably gained about 35 pounds, I think it was. I went from being the most amazing shape to being just absolutely just disgusted with myself to the point where I stopped looking at myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
So, and I went through all of this and essentially hit a point where I was asked to go to a mastermind event about real estate investing. And I said, well, it's probably one of those things where we're going to try to sell you that little white binder and you got to invest a lot, like almost like a timeshare, and what's going to happen. But I said, I'll just go for it. And that weekend event was so focused on mindset before anything. And it was the weekend that, you know, really was the first major domino to push the moving pieces along. And it wasn't until probably about 3 weeks after that my 15-year-old son at the time, he's in the backseat of my car, and he says to me, and I apologize for the language I'm going to use. I should have actually warned everybody that I'm pretty raw and real.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Okay, cool. And he said to me, Dad, I got to ask you a question. I'm like, yeah, sure. What do you have to ask me, son? And he goes, Dad, I have to ask you why you're such a pussy. And it was with my 15-year-old son.
What you don't want to hear from your kid.
Yeah, I mean, most times I would have grabbed him and you know what, but I didn't sleep all night, and here I am. I'm looking at the ceiling. I'm telling myself, I've been telling my son and my children, I have 4, and it's like, hey, do whatever you want. Don't listen to people. Don't be someone else's. You know what? Work for yourself. Chase your dreams. Don't let anybody say you can't do something. And my son is essentially telling me, is like, you say all this, but you're not doing it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that other blow to me, and it was just at that moment I said, okay, enough's enough, and that's where I went hard at it, and that was probably the moment that the whole real estate investing and the mindset, everything all came together.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. In my first podcast that we had, I kind of talked about what got me into real estate, and I mean, so many similarities on the personal side. I wasn't living the high life. I wish I was, but I actually got an opportunity to do medical sales. I got offered one, and I kept reading on it, and everybody said it was so high pressure. You make a lot of money, but it's so high pressure, and I was like, I don't know if I can do that. And I started to doubt myself, so I just never took the opportunity. But the job I was in was just not satisfying and had the personal hardships and the letdown and relationship separation. And I literally hit rock bottom, and I stayed up and I was like, this is going to change. But you can't get to that point until you hit that rock bottom, until you feel that push. So I can relate a lot to your story, which is super cool. And thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure that's hard to open up and talk about. But now that you're past it, I'm sure it's refreshing.
You know, I wonder if there should be
a divorce. No, I appreciate that. And sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say, I wonder if there should be a divorce club of realtors, because I feel like we're all divorced here. So
yeah.
Start a little
a support group.
Support group, yeah.
It is, yeah, for sure. The one thing I've learned, though, through this whole thing, and it was it was hard for me at the beginning to talk so openly about this.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I realized that my vulnerability is my superpower, and when I started sharing this with people, just like yourself, Marcus, you just shared that with me. Maybe that wouldn't have come out to light if I didn't talk about this. And it's amazing. The more I've been sharing this with people, and it's amazing how people are just coming out of the woodwork and saying, wow, like, we resonate with you. We've been there. We get it. Like, finally, someone's not just talking about the headlines and saying, hey, look how much money I made in real estate investing. Look at all this. But no one's really talking about the work that's required, the discipline that's required, the mindset that's required. Because for one to be successful in real estate investing, it's not just putting your money into something and waiting for it to grow. You have to cultivate, 4 or 5 key areas. You got to cultivate your mindset. You got to cultivate your relationships. You got to cultivate your relationship with money, with business, with your body, your spirit, because they all go hand in hand. If I'm eating 10 Big Macs a day, my mindset's not going to be in cue. I'm going to feel like crap. My self-confidence is gone. How's that going to impact my ability to make educated or wise decisions on the fly to invest in real estate? So it all goes hand in hand. And I just needed that hitting that moment and realizing I got to make changes here. And I'm done saying I'm the victim and blaming the system about what it is. And I'm going to say, I'm going with it. And, in 2019, I read one book, and that was related to my high-ticket sales. It was, I think, Respiratory Mechanics by Dr. Viotti out of Switzerland. In 2020, so it was early 2020 that this transformation occurred, and I really made parallels with the hero's journey when I presented. And in 2020, I actually read over 55 books. Mind you,
that's awesome.
There were some audibles in there too.
I'm jealous.
I started a podcast, started a YouTube channel. I lost 30-something pounds. I started meditating. I wrote a book. Trying to think, and then on top of all of that, ended up, I think I did about 12 or 13 14 real estate transactions in 2020. And now in 2021, in the first quarter, I'm already lined up 19 transactions.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. Congrats, by the way. That's inspiring to me, and I'm sure it's going to touch people that are listening as well about that transformation. But I'm jealous with the amount of books that you were able to read, because I know that was one big thing that got me out of, I'm going to call it my funk or my down period, was reading. And when my switch flipped into going to work every day for somebody else and doing the sales stuff, I read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. Changed my mindset completely. The next book was, now I'm going to use language, Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. In that, it literally clarified, why do I care about what people are saying? Why do I care about the stuff I have? Why do I care if someone is being rude to me? Like, it doesn't do anything to my life. I'm just going to do what I want to do and what's going to make me happy. And it simplified my life. I was so caught up in making sure this was okay and that was okay, and I was touching this, and like I was contacting these people, and it was like, why? For what?
I think I need to take a bit of advice from you. Like, I always care. Like, I tell this to my husband every day. I care what my dad thinks about everything I do, because I'm like, why can't he just be proud of me? And I'm like, I need to get over that. I need to let that go, but I just can't.
Yeah. And the one thing that always stuck out in Subtle Art was, I think it was in like the first 2 chapters, he talks about this lady that goes in the grocery store, and she's yelling at this 13-year-old, I think he said 13-year-old pimple-faced teenager who's checking out about this 20-cent coupon that he said it's, I don't know, expired or something like that, not taking it. And she's going off on him. And he's like, why do you care so much about 20-cent coupon? And I was like, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Like, the expectations and what reality are 2 different things, and you just have to go in reality and let go of the expectations.
I mean, maybe if it was a $1 coupon. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, books are important, and they go along with what you're saying with mindset. You keep flooding those thoughts in your mind. You only have a certain capacity to input in a day, and I would rather fill mine up with positivity, with empowerment in structure rather than TV shows and video games and all the other stuff that people think is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
It changes the mindset completely.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, when all... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, sorry. And for the listeners, we're over the phone, so there's a little delay. So sorry about the talking over and all that stuff.
So you're telling me I should stop watching my trashy TV shows?
I'm not saying anything. If you're happy, then you keep doing that. But no, like, I don't know if you get this too, but people always ask, like, is it not super stressful, or is this like so much work? Why don't you do like the go to work, check out, go home, enjoy your night?
That's not fun.
I'm like, it's not hard because I'm doing what I like, so it's not really work.
Right.
I get to do what I want to do. Like, that's enjoyable. And it's not hard because like my mindset is in it. I'm present with it.
Right.
So
Same
it's
with
not very
me.
hard.
I get to work for all of my realtors, and I love it. I mean, I get to like herd you guys. Like, all right, go over here now. Okay.
She does keep us organized.
Over this direction.
But I don't know if do you ever get that question where people are like, you're insane. You're working all these hours. You're doing all these things. Like, how do you hold it together?
Yeah, great point, great question. I get that all the time. I actually created a video on this because on YouTube, which was, why I do what I do. And the thing is that the key thing is fulfillment. That's what it comes down to, because if you don't feel fulfilled, you're failing.
Mm-hmm. So
I need to make sure that everything I do is with the intentionality that it's being fulfilled. That's the first thing. Number two is the brain is the only organ that should be growing in a healthy manner. If your liver starts growing, that's not good. But your brain, you want your brain to grow. And it may not grow in the space that encompasses within your skull. But what's happening is it's the potential that you're pushing on yourself with your neurons. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I love the whole aspect of neuroscience and the connectivity to mindset and with sales. So that's, again, my background. So I was actually speaking to someone. I had her on a guest on my podcast. And she was talking to me about her husband, who was diagnosed with early stage dementia. And what she found was that anytime her husband was working on his purpose mm-hmm. or on his passions, his symptoms of dementia subdued. Mm-hmm. But the moment that he was bored and wasn't being purposeful and intentional, his symptoms would come back.
Yep.
So that says a lot right there. So if we're intentional and we're pushing on that, that's the key thing. Mm-hmm. Now, the unique thing about that is that when we're focused on our mindset and it's like we're becoming limitless, we have to focus on our bodies. Our body has to be able to keep up with that. So when I look at like someone like Elon Musk, I look at Bezos, I look at these individuals, they're in great shape. They're taking care of their bodies. And the reason why they're taking care of their bodies is because their body is there to keep up with their brain power. So, for example, what I have learned from the success of others is that my morning routine is my church. Like that's my morning routine is my church, and that's it. It's non-negotiable. So you have to create non-negotiables.
I like.
So I wake up in the morning. I'm having my hydration. I do my meditation. My gratitude journal that cost me $7.99 on Amazon is worth millions of dollars because it's gratitude that's so critical. I take my vitamins. My eating windows between 12 and 5 p.m. I'm doing all these things, and then what's happening? And then I'm reading in there, and then my day doesn't start with the work until I've gone through all of that and I've got my workout in. So what I've done is I've already primed my body, ready to go. So now, when I'm throwing numbers for an investment or throwing an opportunity for investment, my body, my mind is already dialed in. It's not waking up. It's ready to go. And then what I do is, as I get ready for bed, I just do the reverse. So, again, my cell phone is not plugged into my bedroom because, again, it's just going to serve as a distraction. So my cell phone is plugged and charged outside of my bedroom. It's plugged in the living room. And I do in reverse order of that. And then why that's so important is when people's days are quite turbulent because they're sleeping in and they're starting the chaos themselves. When someone complains about flying, say they don't like flying, and if I usually ask someone, they said, well, yeah, I had a rough flight. Okay. It's usually the result of a really bad takeoff or a really bad landing. Well, if we don't control our landing and takeoff during the day, that's how our day is going to be.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor.
What time do you
Yeah,
wake
and,
up in the
and so
morning?
I focus on this, and for your viewers that are your listeners are going to listen, saying, get to the meat and potatoes, get to the meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
All I know about investing, you can't get to that point if this is not dialed in. The only way you're going to, if you're thinking about the get rich quick, yeah, you can go buy a course and do something get rich quick. You know, go sell Amway or do some sort of multi-level marketing or whatever that is. But if you want to have something that's going to be legacy wealth, there's going to be sustainable, you have to do these key things.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we keep hearing from all of our investors too, is they have their routines. They have, they stick to what they know, but I think it's been obviously very beneficial for all of them.
Yeah. In the start of the day was huge for me because I used to wake up. I had to be at work at 8. So, okay, I could wake up at 7:15 and I would have 10 minutes to eat. And like, if I made every green light, I could get there like right at 7:59. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm literally like trying to avoid what I should just like let it come to me. Wake up when I want to wake up healthy, like get my breakfast in, read something, not rush to work, just in a relaxed mindset. Cause I would race to work and then like, okay, I'm late. I got to get to my desk. I have to make my first call. And like my whole day starts out with hectic. And then when I had my flip, I was like, I'm just going to start waking up at like 5:30 and see how it goes. And I would go to bed at like 9:30, 10, wake up at 5:30. And like for the first week, it felt really weird because I like didn't know what to do with free time. And I was like, this isn't right because like I'm sitting here trying to fill time. And I was like, after the week, I was like, this is actually really nice. I can read a book or go research something or like start a craft that I want to do and then like passively get to work. And it was just like trying something different. And I was so fearful of getting out of my routine that it was going to ruin my routine and then I could never get back into it. But I didn't see that my routine was actually part of my issue. So to completely flip the script and just, all right, I'm going to try something 180 degrees different. And it actually turned out to be a blessing. And that just kind of changed. It all progressed. Natasha actually asked, when do you, like, what is your wake up? When's your sleep? Like, what does it all look like?
Oh, I think that's for me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
like, what time do you typically wake up on a weekday?
Yeah, so, you know what? I want to be up by 5:30 in the morning, and I want to be in bed at 10.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
What I've done as well is I've actually invested in it's called an Aura ring. It's a Dutch product, and I wear it on my index finger because I wake up in the morning and saying, how do I feel? It's all very, very subjective, and I needed to see the data. So I invested in this Aura ring. I think it was like $400. And what it does is when I wake up in the morning, it actually gives me the data I need, and it basically tells me how well I slept, how many levels I was in my REM sleep, my deep sleep. It also gives me a readiness score. So it tells me how I'm going to be able to function during the day. And it basically looks at my heart variable index. So it basically tells me if my body's under stress and so forth. And what I do with that now is I use that as data because if it says my readiness score is it says needs attention, I'm going to do my heavy lifting in the morning. And when I say heavy lifting, I'm not talking about lifting heavy weights. Right. I'm talking about my heavy lifting of my thought process because I'm going to be sharper in the morning.
Sure.
The other thing as well is by, not eating after 5 p.m.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's because
like intermittent fasting?
What's that, sorry?
Was it like intermittent fasting?
It's exactly what it is. It's intermittent fasting. But the reason I don't like to eat after 5 o'clock is because when I go to bed, I don't want the blood flow going to my gut, which is going to impact my sleep. So by then, it's already digested, and the blood flow can go, and the nutrients can go where it needs to go. And I experimented with this, and I sleep way better, and I get more restful sleep if I stop eating at 5.
That's really interesting. I try to do intermittent fasting too. I just don't necessarily stop at 5, but I like the idea a lot. It's just hard. My husband works late hours, so I try to have dinner with him, but maybe I'll try that, see how it works out for me.
For sure. It's made a huge difference for me. And then I find in the morning I'm just so sharp. It's fantastic when I'm doing my intermittent fasting.
I love it. That's awesome.
There's a part where I was doing intermittent fasting, not by choice, and I didn't realize I was doing it. I was just so caught up in work that I just forgot to eat, and then I was like, oh, I haven't eaten today.
Oh, well,
But it was super weird because I wasn't hungry.
Hungry, yeah.
And then when I'd eat breakfast and lunch, I was like starving at dinner.
Yeah.
But when I didn't eat my lunch, I would get home and I'm like, yeah, I'm not really even that hungry. I would have like my protein and my vegetable, and then I was like, I'm shoving that in. I'm like, you have to eat food.
That's like the keto diet.
Yep.
You got it.
Yeah, exactly. Keto before keto was a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you made all these mindset changes, you're like, I'm going into real estate. What was your first step into getting to it? You said you went to that mindset convention.
I went to a mastermind. Yeah.
Mastermind. From there, where did you go? Did you know what kind of investing you wanted to get into? Did that happen organically just when you were trying to open the door and that one opened?
Yeah. So before I got into the room, it's about the who is really what it comes down to. What my mentor says it best, and it's you don't know what you don't know. So when I got into real estate investing, I just thought because of HGTV, there's really two ways you could be a real estate investor. You could either do flips or you could be a landlord, and that was it. So, and I was looking at this, and I'm like, okay, and it just didn't make sense to me on multiple levels. Number one is, if I'm looking for cash flow, and let's just say each of my properties is making, let's just say $500 a property, and I want to bring in $10,000 a month of passive income, I need a crap ton of properties.
Yeah.
So how do I do that? And then I'm looking at the flip side. I'm like, well, if I do the flips, how does that work? And again, my limited education and my scarcity mindset. So I didn't know any better. And then what happened was I got into the right room, and it was at that moment I realized, like, hey, there is an avenue here that I need to leverage other people's wisdom. And before that, I didn't really see the benefit of mentorship. And now I'm all about mentorship. I'm a mentor myself now. I actually, I invest heavily in mentorship. I have about 5 or 6 different coaches. And in fact, I tell people, and they say, like, I tell people that my goal is to spend $1 million into my mindset and personal development. Not properties, but $1 million in between my ears.
Wow.
Because I've seen already that with the investment I've made, I've already invested close to $100,000 into my mindset, and I can already see the exponential growth in my business. I can see the exponential growth in my relationships. I can see the exponential growth in so many different facets of my life. And so what I thought was woo-woo is now like, hey, this makes sense. There's Tony Robbins, for example, or, you talk about Dean Graziosi, you talk about all these different individuals that are out there, and they're so dialed in, but they also have a very, very amazing, promising real estate business. So when I got in that room and started exploring, and I said, okay, well, how do I do this? And because up in Canada, you're limited by how many mortgages you can get at your major institutional banks. I'm like, there has to be a different way. There has to be a better way. And I said, how do I replace my income? And then I was introduced to the whole array of different avenues of real estate investing, whether it be, getting off-market deals from pocket listings, to doing a wholesale or doing flips, to do your active investing strategy. So if I need to leave my job, I need to fill that deep well with something, and I can't rely on passive income. But then if I decide to move on to the passive side, I can it's all about the source of the deal, or eliminating the middleman, or middlewoman. So getting right to the deal itself, and then using multiple exit strategies. Whether it be if I get an off-market deal, I'm going to put it back on the MLS, for example, and make some money on it. Or maybe I'm going to flip it. If I can't flip it, then maybe I'll get some tenants in there. I'll do the burst strategy, and I'll be strategic with my renovations. I'm going to refinance it. I'm going to rehab it. I'm going to rent it. I'm going to refinance it. I'm going to repeat the process. Take that money and put it back to the next property. If that doesn't work out, then maybe I can offer seller financing or vendor take back. So what happened was my whole world just changed completely when I said, I was getting in too late in the game. So my only exit strategy after doing a buy and hold was to sell it. Whereas now, I can get in an earlier stage with it, and I can now mitigate my risk. So now, any property I look at now, I look at it as my best case scenario, which is I can take this, and I'm looking not for after fair value, I look for fair market value. So, for example, if someone on their team said, "Hey, Mark, we got a property for you. This is what it's worth." Okay, what is it worth if I buy it today and I have to sell it tomorrow? That's the question I need to know. Is there any meat on the bones? Mm-hmm. And that's how I invest. But I also then invest in my worst case scenario is that I'm going to be stuck with this property. And that's a pretty good worst case scenario. Right. Yeah. Then what I do is I run the numbers. And I run the numbers at a very high interest rate. I actually take whatever the interest rate is. And I usually go about 8 to 10% on the interest rate. People say, "Are you nuts?" But I say worst case scenario, if I have to go to a private money and that's the only interest I can get, and it still float the property. And if it hits the checkbox as yes, then hey, it's a decent investment. Mm-hmm. So that's how I basically and that's how I was able to really scale the way I did, is because I just didn't know any better. I thought there was only two ways to get into real estate investing, which is either being a landlord and doing buy and hold strategies or doing flips.
Yeah, and
I did not. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's refreshing to hear that, because I had the same mindset. I went in and I was like, okay, are we going to flip properties or are we going to rent properties? And there's so many different ways you can take it. It's not a one size fits all. Every property is different. Every situation is different. Every the way you finance it's different. And when you can kind of wrap your head around the volatility of it, I guess, it becomes more manageable, and you can start to see different avenues. And you can see where this person brings you a house and you're like, okay, well, let me see what I can do with this one. I'll never say no to a deal. Is it going to be a rental property? Is it going to be a flip? Are we going to take the roof off and make it a duplex? Are we able to split the lot and put another house on the other? And there's so many endless opportunities. I just got to know if the numbers are going to work. If the numbers are going to work and it's going to be profitable, I'm open to it. And
it's all about the numbers.
Yeah. You're thinking about something, Natasha. She's sitting over there like thinking.
No, I was just thinking, like, this is why I leave it to you guys to do all the real estate stuff. And this is why I'm your assistant, because, like, there's so much stuff that's going on in my head right now that there is no way I'd be able to, like, handle that. Like, I would be a hot mess. I would be so nervous that what if I make the wrong decision, or I couldn't do it.
Oh, there's going to be mess ups along the way. There's going to be mess ups along the way.
Point.
That's true.
And I love that, because that's what holds back a lot of people from making the leap. So what has to happen with that mindset is realizing, hey, see, real estate investing is all about leverage. You can leverage the bank's money. You can leverage equity. You can leverage other people's wisdom. You can leverage other people's unique abilities. You could leverage everything when it comes to real estate investing. So Natasha, although you may have thoughts when you're asking yourself, where do I even start? Well, at that point, why not just partner with someone, and they have the experience, you go in together, and like Mark Cuban says, instead of trying to get the full grape, why don't you just take a piece of the watermelon? And that's how businesses scale.
I love it. I just like to make things look pretty. Like that's my little hashtag. I make things look pretty. So if I can partner with somebody and make things look pretty, then I'm good.
Yeah. The marketing side she's got down.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the marketing side she's got down, and that's where she finds her joy. So I want her to stay there, because if I lose you, I'm going to be really, really panicking on the back office side of things.
Natasha would not like my style. My style is I'm a firm believer that done is better than perfect. I'm a marketing person's nightmare, because I'm okay if a flyer goes out and there's a spelling error. I'm like, it's content. It's fine. Yeah. But I can understand that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, this is literally how we work. I'm like, hey, can you create these signs, and she'll like send me a proof, and I'm like, yep, that sounds good.
You have to even look at it.
I just want to see the logo, the content's on there. We're great. I trust you, and that's kind of how I work with delegating, either with marketing or with the architect or with my crew. Like if you run into a corner and you're gonna come to me to ask which way should I go, I'm gonna ask you which way do you want to go. Like I put you in the position to do that, and I want to be able to trust you.
I was gonna say you trust in our capabilities and our professional opinions and our knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I put him in the position to be that way, and I don't know if that's how you kind of. It sounds like that's how you kind of run it.
You're setting us up for success.
Absolutely, you have to. You know, and you know what? This past year, like. So I have lots on the go, right? Because I got my real estate investing business. I'm a consultant. I have mentorship. I actually speak. I do speaking. You know, I have a YouTube channel. All this stuff. And I realized that I needed to do something about it, and that's where confidence comes into play. We talk about real estate investing, but a true benchmark or a true test to see how confident you are is by paying someone else and outsourcing, because what that brings a level of confidence that you believe in your cause. You believe that you can do this, and you need to do it because that's how you're going to scale. So I went out and I hired a marketing firm to do my marketing. And people said to me, well, that's a lot of money. And I look at it, but I'm like, I turn it around. I'm like, yeah, but it's not. This is a business of not who you know, but who knows you. Like the true test is you're going to be your own confidence of how confident you're in yourself. So, for example, I'm asked to speak at 7:00 tonight on a marketing program about brand marketing. And I tell people straight up that if you're not willing to invest in yourself, because at the end of the day, you're the asset. The property's not the asset. That you are the asset. Mm-hmm. And that's what people are investing in, the prize. So I tell people, if you feel like a good way of testing yourself if you're confident or not is if you're willing to outsource, if you're willing to take money out of your own pocket and pay someone to do it for you. Mm-hmm. So that's how one scales. So for me, I ran into that a lot in last year, saying, well, I can do all this. And I reached a threshold like, I can't do this anymore because it's holding back my business. So I had to ask myself, is this business scalable? And do I have confidence in my mission? Do I have confidence in what I'm doing? Do I have confidence in my messaging? And the answer was yes. So now I've hired a marketing company, and I spend lots of money with them. But again, this business is not who you know, but who knows you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that. I haven't heard that. I like that. But yeah, and I'll admit, a fear of mine was delegating and outsourcing at the beginning. Because I had the mindset of like, I can do it. If I don't know how to do it, I can learn how to do it, and I'll just do it. And it took so many people to tell me like, what are you doing? You're driving yourself insane. You're not sleeping. On the opposite of you, I lost a ton of weight. And not like a healthy weight, but, cause I wanted to do everything and I wanted to control everything. And it took so many people to tell me like, hey, this is not healthy. You need to change this. And then I was like, okay, we'll add on more people. And then I'll add on people here and I'll add on people here. And it was a direct correlation with stress level, and my weight went back up. It was just a healthier move. And I've gotten so much more comfortable, and Natasha would probably say too comfortable with delegating, where it's just, I just want this done. Wherever you want to take it, go do it. And it's just so much, it's mentally better. It's physically better. I feel like the employees are more happy because they get more of a say. I mean, you were talking about being fulfilled, and that's what I want. I just want them to be able to control what their department is doing. As long as it fits with our message, that sounds great to me. And one other thing I wanted to touch on when you were talking about investing in yourself, whenever somebody comes to me and asks, like, how did you get into this, or how can I get into this? My first response is go work for free. If you truly want to get into this, go work for free. You're going to, see if you want, it's a great test. You're going to see if you want to do this, and there's really no skin in the game except for your time. 2, you're working for somebody who's been in this. So even if you're pushing papers around, like, talk to the person. That's going to be your new mentor. they're going to give you so much knowledge, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. You're just taking knowledge that they have, and then you can go apply it on your own. And then you're also going to get people to, like you said, know you. And then you can branch off and do that. So that's how I started. I just started to work for a broker for free. What do you need me to do? And then it obviously grew, and here we are. Best decision to get into real estate. I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I learned so much information, which led me to what we're doing now. So investing in yourself is a key component, and it's scary. I'm sure when you talk to people in these talks, there's so much fear about investing in themselves.
Right.
I mean, there's no one else to blame if it tanks. There's no one else to blame, and that's
Right.
a large burden to carry.
I was gonna say that's right on my back.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
And there's nights where I stay up and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so happy I've got, I can make my own schedule and all those nice things that people say about working for yourself. And then like it hits me, I'm like, so many people rely on me.
That's the part of being a small business owner. That's why I got out of the game.
And I'm like, okay, it's pay week. And there's never like a fear, but I'm always like, oh my gosh, like this is real. And like they have kids.
Yep.
And they have partners and they have mortgages.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh.
As I'm staring straight at Marcus.
Yeah, right. But there's fear on both sides. I mean, I was fearful to leave my W-2 because like I've got a kid and I need groceries. And if I work for myself, like there's no guarantee in money.
Yep.
And then someone, I don't know who it was, said to me like, you could get fired. And I was like, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Like I have just as much security in working for myself than I do for somebody else.
I love working for myself. I've worked for myself for, basically the last 10 years. But finally, I don't have a brick and mortar. But I'm working from home. I'm working with all kinds of realtors all throughout the U.S. and the lovely Marcus right here. So I love it. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think there's there's a false sense of security when we work for someone else, because that is probably the most unsecure area, because that whoever you're working for can off you and you wouldn't even know it. And that's the thing. And I actually call working for someone else like being in minimum security prison, because you're basically rewarded for good behavior. But you're allowed to go for your walks. You're allowed to get your fresh air. But if you want more, you have to beg for it. And you know what the answer is going to be.
My husband is very like straight laced. Like he has always worked for somebody else, and like I don't think he could ever not work for somebody else, because I think to him that's really reassuring, knowing that somebody's going to pay for his health insurance, somebody's going to pay, his salary. And me, I'm just the free spirit. I'm like all over the place. There's no way that I could be tied down to a business in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just interesting how people are just wired differently.
It took me a while to like I left a very great an amazing job in high ticket sales, but to get like, why do we do all what we do? Is it for a paycheck or is it for freedom? And what I got back was my time. Yeah. Because there's a great exercise, and I would love your listeners to do this exercise. I highly recommend both of you do this exercise. It's called the ribbon exercise. Essentially, what you do is you basically take a ribbon, and let's just say it's 100 inches. Okay, so you take 100 inches in length. Okay, and what I want you to do is I actually want you to cut whatever your age is. So, for example, I'm 43 years old, so I cut it at 43. Okay. Then what I do is on that same, like you're going to measure it. So again, we're going to estimate this. So we say the average lifespan of a male, for example, in North America is going to be around that 78 years old. So then I cut it off at 78. So the difference is I have between 43 and 78. But I also tell myself, I don't want to work till the day I die. So what I want to do is I want to put something on it that says, hey, this is when I want to retire and not like just enjoy life. So let's just say it's 60 years old. So now I got to go from 78 to 60. Now I cut it off there. So I'm 43 to 60. Now I have to factor in, hey, during that time, I want to be sleeping a third of that time. So now I got to cut off a third of that time off. then what I have to factor in is, hey, studies have shown that during that time in the mask, I'm probably going to be spending 2 years on social media just wasting time. So I got to cut off those 2 years off there. So whatever that ribbon is left with, that is the time you have left. There is abundance of money out there. There's abundance of deals. What we don't have as an abundance is time.
That's dark.
I got chills during that one because I was like, okay, how small is my ribbon going to be
here? Oh
here?
my God. I'm like a little sad.
But it's a really good visual. Like, it puts it in perspective for sure.
I know. I was doing it. I was.
And what I do is I get my students, I say, you take that ribbon now and I want you to tape it to your bathroom mirror, or I want you to use it as a bookmark. And you're going to see that every day as your own messaging. So when you're asking yourself, should I really be doing this? What are you wasting time on? Or, as we say, life's biggest risk isn't taking one.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, I've never really thought about that, but yeah, like what I said when I completely flipped to do something different, that was a huge risk. And I mean, the risk was not doing that, not changing and staying in that mode or that mindset or that job that I was in. And yeah, I never really thought about the whole risk fear on that one in that way. But I'm definitely doing that ribbon. Like when I get home, I'm definitely doing the ribbon, and that is going in my Tim Ferriss book that I'm reading right now.
For our work week, or
it was the most recent one he came out, 4 Hour Body.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know he put out a book. I was listening to him on a podcast, and he was talking about writing a book about health, and the podcast host was like, well, why don't you write it? And he's like, it wouldn't be long enough. There wasn't an editor or a publisher that wanted to do it. So what he basically did is made a book of little short stories, basically, about different facets of your life. And I didn't know that he was close to getting his doctorate. And he's got a lot of like factual studies that he was allowed to do because he's not bound by the doctor title because he never really completed it. So it was kind of interesting, his spin on everything. And I mean, I can't say where I'm at the book because you're not supposed to read it cover to cover. You pick a topic, you read that little short one. You can jump to 3/4 in the book and read a different topic.
It's like a choose your own adventure book.
Basically. It's super fascinating. I mean, I loved his previous books, and this one is right on par with it. So, yeah, he's an author that I suggest for sure. Is there a common fear that you see from the people that you speak to that like comes up either in your talks or in your podcasts or like a... Don't
worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to decline it. Sorry, there was a phone call coming in. So is there a common fear that you see or something that you address almost every time you give a talk or every time you talk to somebody? What is that, and how do you kind of work around that with them?
Yeah, I love that question. I've come to realize that I tried the nice way before, and let's get around a campfire and sing Kumbaya, and let's go through the healing process. Now I just rip off the Band-Aid, and I just tell people and part of my expression here is stop being a little bitch and stop complaining. Everybody has a choice. Everybody has a choice. You can either play victim or you can be the victor. There's a great book that I highly recommend. It was by Dr. Viktor Frankl, which is called Man's Search for Meaning. And in this book, so the story about Dr. Viktor Frankl is he was a neuroscientist, and he was actually, through the Second World War, I believe he went through 3 or 4 concentration camps. He survived 3 or 4 concentration camps. He saw his wife killed. He saw his family killed. Saw all that stuff. The messaging, and I'm going to paraphrase this about his book, is that it's not the circumstance that defines you. It's how you choose to respond to your circumstance. So when I speak to individuals, it's the whole thing, it comes down to fear. It comes down to fear. It comes to, is it the fear of failing, the fear of not knowing? And that fear is connected to their ego. Their ego is connected to their environment. there's a Persian proverb that says, if a plant doesn't grow in its environment, you don't change a plant, you move that plant to another environment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a great book called Lynchpin by Seth Godin.
Great one.
And great book, right?
Mm-hmm.
It talks about the lizard brain. And it talks about the resistance. See, the whole society is this herd mentality. It's this herd mentality. Why did, like in COVID-19 stuff, why did people start fighting over toilet paper? It's because
I
other
never
people were doing
understood
it.
that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
It was herd mentality. That's all it was. It was an element of fear. And so what happens is that I think it's people just want to go with that herd mentality because it's too easy.
Yeah.
People have asked me why I focus so much on my personal development. How come I read so much? Why am I doing all this? I'm not doing it because I'm looking for a medal or a trophy saying, haha, look how many books I read. I do it because I'm constantly, every day, fighting that resistance. Just like a treadmill. If I look at a treadmill, do I really want to get on a treadmill? No, but I have to because it's too easy not getting on the treadmill.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get on the treadmill.
When people struggle with this, there's a 95.5% rule. The ones that succeed at this are the outliers. They're the freaks. You look at another, I mean, I'm going to reference a lot of books here.
That's another good book
Tim
I was
Grover.
just going to say.
Tim Grover, Relentless. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, they would win their championships and they'd go tell their coach, Phil Jackson, I'll see you tomorrow morning on practice. It's not good enough because it's too easy to fall back, and that's why they succeeded the way they did. So, to answer your question about this, that there's this inherent fear, what are people going to think, and it's all related to one's environment. So, in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, the financial Bible, I call it.
Great book.
And the mindset
You're bringing
change
up
talks
just
about
amazing reads.
I think we're just going to have a book club here, guys.
And in the
that.
show
That's
notes,
awesome. I love it.
in the show notes, we're going to write all these books down just
Yep.
so that you can keep track of these. These were all like all the books that I read getting into this mindset were these books.
Yeah, and I wish I could give you more and more, but this one talks about the thing that holds most people, the number one thing that holds everyone back is their environment. And I'm not talking about their environment like the temperature and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be your friends, family, and who you're working for. A good example of that is simply going on Facebook. Look at social media. I go to social media. It's not. I go to create. I don't consume. I could give a rip about what someone's eating and they post a picture on there, and I don't care about that stuff. What I'm doing is I'm looking at what value does it provide me for my cause. So, having said that, I tell people they should do a purge on Facebook. Who's bringing value? When all this stuff happened with the news with COVID-19, I got rid of cable because it was bringing too much negativity.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was glued to the television. It was breaking news. Wolf Blitzer, breaking news. It's like, no shit. It's here. It's not going anywhere. Why is it simply breaking news? Right?
Yeah.
So it's about the environment. And you know what? We ultimately, like I said, it's not the circumstance that defines us. It's how we choose to respond to that circumstance.
Yeah.
So if you're in a bad relationship with someone, get out. You have a choice.
Yep.
Well, some people say, I have no choice. It's going to cost me this much money. But what do you value your life at?
Mm-hmm.
What do you value your freedom?
Yeah. And like what you just said was more along the lines of like the process. And another book, just to reference it, was The Alchemist. I tell people to read that all the time. It's not the most like exciting read, but when you get to the end of the book, I'm going to admit when I read it the first time, I was frustrated. I was like, that's the ending. And then you sit back and you like, I don't know if I was outside, just like if I was running, but something clicked and I was like, oh, I get it. That made a lot of sense.
Do you have like a library in your new house now? Like, is there a room that's just full, like chock full of books?
It will be, but we're finishing the attic. So once the attic in the office is done, there's bookshelf galore. And I did the book you just referenced before. I already have that in my Amazon cart. I'm going to order it right after the podcast.
Nice.
And I have a note section in my phone. When somebody references a good book, I pick up my phone, I write it down, and I put an X next to it when I read it. And I want that list to go so long. Like, I'm going to see how long I can get this list going. All the books that you referenced are on there and more.
If it was actually like a list as a paper list, it would be like doing like circles. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I I don't get frustrated, but I'm curious as to the mindset of why it is when people are like, oh, I hate reading, so I just don't. And I'm like, well, we have podcasts. We have so many other ways to input information.
Yeah, take in information.
If you don't have time to sit at night, or if you read at night, you fall asleep and you can't get through it. Like how long is your drive to work? 20 minutes? Great. You have 40 minutes to listen to it on an audiobook. Like there's no excuse not to do it except for you just don't want to. And some people just don't want to yet. And
I think it's people that don't want to, but there's a reason. I think there's an inherent reason why they don't want to, because they know it's going to strike a chord with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's ego. I refused to read because it was an ego for me. It was too easy saying it, and that's what it came down to. It's just too easy. I challenge people all the time. I could predict what your future is going to look like next year. And I said, how so? I go, let's just go on Amazon and show me your last 3 purchases on Amazon for the last 3 months.
That's telling.
And I can tell you where your future is.
Dog toys?
Right? I mean, my Amazon is, someone tells me there's a book, I buy it. Like, I did a vision board, and on my vision board is a big-ass library.
I love it. That sounds like Marcus.
I came from, I don't read, school's boring, I don't need to do this.
I can see that being you.
It was, and honestly, I didn't want to. It was boring to me at the time, and something flipped, and now I will read any book. I will pick up, if it's knowledge and I can get it and it's free, like, why not?
Yeah.
When you said look at your last 3 orders, mine are it was a vitamin. I bought my vitamins. I bought Brazilian nuts and a rose quartz medallion.
Oh, yes.
That's a Valentine's Day gift, though, so I don't know if it technically counts.
Well, I mean, I did buy my probiotics,
that's okay.
so that counts.
But
right?
I bought it on purpose. It's supposed to attach to your heart chakra and open up. We're getting into spiritual stuff.
Oh my God. Okay.
Bobby needs to be here.
We
have a guest that comes on. She's been on I think 3 times.
Yes.
She does spiritual readings and house clearings on all my properties.
Nice.
She is awesome. The last show she walked through our flip that we're doing and told us like the energy of the house, and it was super fascinating.
And then I'm sorry. And then that there was a guy in the basement that tapped her on her shoulder.
Yeah,
oh wow,
it's super cool stuff. But yeah, I just got super interested because I didn't know what my last Amazon orders were, because it's so easy to order now. You just click a button and it's at your door. So I had to check myself.
But anyway.
Yeah, sorry, side tangent on that one. We
no,
didn't do
that's
that.
cool.
I'm getting yelled at by Natasha because we're in an hour, and Natasha keeps me to an hour. Otherwise, I could keep you on for like 3.5 hours.
We can always have him
No
come
problem.
back.
Well, you know what? We could set up another time. I'll be more than happy to come on, because I know we didn't get right to the meat and potatoes of like, hey, what am I doing for investing and that kind of stuff. But the thing is, when people come and ask me to go speak, and I tell them straight up, like, this is going to be very different than what you're probably expecting. So now's the time. You can either leave or you can stay. It's up to you, because I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, we have to cut it in an hour.
But we will definitely have you back on.
Yes, Natasha is going to get with you because I want to get all your contact information. If you could send us a link to your YouTube video that we can put into the show notes so people can watch that and get in contact with you. So Natasha will reach out after this, get all that information. We'll put it in the show notes, and then she's going to go ahead and try to schedule you back, because I don't even think we got done with the mindset stuff.
Oh, God, no.
I could go 3.5 hours of just the mindset.
Jesus.
I know. Natasha's like, oh, no.
I'm just going to.
But after the mindset, like, I do want to get into the investing stuff. I want to get into as much of the numbers as you want to share, obviously.
Sure.
But yeah, I love mindset. I'm a true passionate person about mindset. I always say it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So again, we could have another hour talk, just mindset. I'd be fine with it.
Well, looking forward to it, man. Like, you know what? It's amazing. A year and a half ago, someone would have told me that you're going to be talking about mindset and your Friday nights are going to be drinking tea and reading a book. I would have said, you're crazy. You're laughed at myself. But those are my happy Fridays now.
Right. I'm right there with you. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time so much, Mark. I'm looking forward to the next time we can get you on the show. And good luck until we get you back. Wishing you all the best through all the stuff you're doing.
For sure. Thank you. And thank you for having me on. Hopefully this was insightful for you. I'm sure it wasn't what you expected, but if that's the case, I did what I had to do then.
I go in with no expectations, and you blew what my expectations would have been out of the water. So,
yes, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem. And we'll definitely be in touch, and I'll send you the stuff right now, Natasha, via Facebook Messenger.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.